Here is the recap of the first and second seasons of The Witcher. Meet the main characters. Geralt of Rivia is a silent mercenary witcher, specializing in the extermination of all kinds of monsters and beasts. Yennefer is a girl with magical powers, and a young princess Cirilla. Their adventures sometimes intersect, but in general occur in different timelines. I will tell you everything in order, so you don't get confused. In the upper left-hand corner I will indicate the year when the event takes place. Yennefer discovers she has magical powers and accidentally teleports herself to the Wizarding Academy of Arethusa, where she meets a sorcerer named Istred. He wants to help the girl and sends her home. However, Tissaya, the rector of Arethusa, tracks down the Yennefer and buying her from her father for 4 marks. She is trained in magical skills for several years and also learns that she has elven blood, which makes her more powerful than her peers. In addition, she has an affair with Istred during her training. We learn that there is a certain group among wizards who secretly run countries and try to keep them under control by slipping them their advisors. After a while, Yennefer finishes her training and asks a wizard named Gilton to use magic to fix her ugliness. In the course of this transformation, the girl is deprived of the possibility of having children. The Yennefer then goes to a ceremony where kings choose their wizards' advisors and settles for the most powerful one. However, after 30 years, she grows tired of such a life. At one point, the queen and her child, whom she has been assigned to protect, are assassinated. Yennefer is the only survivor. She decides to leave the service, become a free sorceress, and settle down in a small town, which after a while she secretly begins to rule. Back to The Witcher. When the Geralt is on a mission, he finds himself in the town of Blaviken, where he meets the wizard Stregobor. Old man asks him to kill a girl named Renfri, who by prophecy should herald the end of the world, blah blah blah, and so on. Plus she has gathered bandits around her and is robbing passing merchants. The Geralt refuses to kill her, but later she tells the hero that she intends to kill Stregobor. The Witcher suggests that the girl go far away and give up her revenge, but Renfri does not agree and Geralt has to kill her. Before she dies, the girl tells the hero of his destiny to meet the forest girl, as we later learn it is Cirilla. Geralt, resting from his wanderings, and meets the bard named Jaskier, who follows the hero and wants to hear about his adventures so he can sing about them in taverns and make money from it. Geralt goes on another mission and stumbles upon a settlement of elves who were driven from their lands by humans half a century ago. They first want to kill the heroes, but the Witcher persuades them to leave these lands and the elves let them go. Years later, Hero finds a job in Temeria, where he meets the sorceress Triss and saves the kingdom from the monster Striga. Another 6 years later, Jaskier invites the hero to a ball in the kingdom of Cintra as his bodyguard. Witcher meets Queen Calante and her daughter Poveder. During the ball, the knight Duny bursts into the hall and demands that the queen give her daughter in marriage to him by right of surprise. Perhaps it's worth clarifying what the right of surprise is. In the Witcher's world, anyone can ask a stranger for any favor for the right of surprise. Roughly speaking, when the time comes, the person will give something he already has, but does not know about when he returns home. Mostly, of course, it is a child. So Duny once saved Pavette's father, and now by right of surprise he is destined to become her husband. Calante is against this and tries to kill Duny, which causes Pavette, who has hidden magical skills, to have a power surge, and only by the joint efforts of the Witcher and the court druid they manage to prevent further destruction. After this, the queen changes her mind and allows them to marry. After a kiss, the curse falls on Duny and he becomes human. He thanks the Witcher and offers him a reward. He jokingly asks for the right of surprise, and everyone understands that now the future daughter of Pavette and Duny will belong to the hero. Later we find out that it is Cirilla. 7 years later, Jaskier meets the Witcher on the river bank, where he catches a jar of genie. The Geralt opens the bottle, and casually says, "I only want peace," which becomes his first wish. The genie breaking free magically injures Jaskier, and the hero goes to the nearest town for help, as there is rumored to be a sorceress there. When he arrives, he discovers that the enchantress is Yennefer and asks her to cure his friend. She agrees after learning that a genie is involved. The girl has accomplished a lot in her life, but because of that operation she still can't have children. Yennefer has tried everything and now decides that she can use the power of the genie to solve her problem. She sends Geralt to the dungeon and tries to absorb the genie. Eventually, the Witcher gets out of the prison with his second wish. And with his third, he lets the genie go free and thus saves Yennefer's life, because the genie would most likely have killed the girl. After all this, Geralt and the enchantress sleep together. 6 years later, the Witcher and Yennefer cross paths again when they participate in a dragon hunt. The dragon turns out to be one of the participants in the hunt, who is able to transform into a human and is involved in this adventure because he was trying to protect his race from the hunters. Also in this adventure, the Witcher argues with Jaskier. Geralt learns that Cintra may soon be attacked by the Nilfgaard Empire. He demands from Queen Calanta that he be given the matured Ciri so he can protect her. The queen disagrees and locks the Witcher in a dungeon. After a while, the Nilfgaard Empire does attack Cintra and begins killing all of its inhabitants. The king and queen telling their granddaughter before they die to find Geralt, and the court druid Mousak leads the girl through secret passages out of the castle. However, they are taken prisoner, but the young princess uses her magical powers, which she did not know before, and escapes into the woods. The Witcher also escapes from prison and goes in search of the girl, but he is wounded by Guli, and for some time he rides in a wagon and sees visions, like his mother who gave her son to the Witchers, Yennefer, etc. The leader of the villains, named Caer, asks the shape-shifting creature to transform into a druid mouse sack and go in search of the girl. Ciri, meanwhile, meets an elf named Dara, and together they run away from their pursuers. Soon they enter the woods, where they stumble upon the druids. To prove that they have come with good intentions, they are forced to drink water that will kill anyone who has come into the forest with evil intent. After drinking it, Ciri falls into a trance and sees a desert with a huge tree. Soon the doppelganger mouse sack appears and takes the girl with him, but he is quickly discovered. Ciri escapes and moves into the home of the kindly peasant woman. Meanwhile, the Nilfgaard army continues its expansion and the Council of Wizards decides to intervene. Not everyone agrees, and a group of 60 wizards, including Triss, Yennefer, Tissaya and another wizard named Vilgefortz, set out for the fortress, which is the only way for the villain army to get north. A battle ensues where many wizards die. But Yennefer, using her magical powers, pushes back the Nilfgaard, allowing the allied army to come to the rescue. However, after her magic, the heroine disappears somewhere. Soon Geralt reaches Ciri and they meet in embrace. End of Season 1. If you've listened all the way up here, you like what I do, so subscribe to my channel, like this video and write a comment. After meeting Ciri, Geralt travels with her to the battlefield of Sodden, where he tries to find Yennefer. In his conversation with Tissaya, he learns that the northern kingdoms have defeated the Nilfgaard. Yennefer is missing and most likely dead, because having used too much fire magic. Later, the Witcher tells Ciri that the girl's parents promised her hero by right of surprise, and he has now vowed to protect the young princess with all his might. On their way to safety, they stumble upon an empty village. Geralt, deciding not to stay here, and goes to his old friend Evelyn. It turns out that several years ago a curse was put on him, and he secretly lives together with the vampire, which killed all the people in the nearby village. Nevertheless, Nivellen and the vampire love each other. Eventually, the Witcher kills the monster, and Nivellen regains his human appearance, as the death of his beloved in his arms was a condition for breaking the curse. Geralt and Ciri go to Caer Morhen, the fortress where all the Witchers wait out the winter, replenish their elixirs, etc. Also, we find out that because of some incident in the past, most of the Witchers died, and elixir with which you can create new Witchers no longer exists. If anything, this incident is recounted in a cartoon called The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf. In Caer Morhen, the heroes meet Vesemir, their leader, and Ciri meets the other Witchers. After some time, there also returns Eskel, infected by a wood monster. He also turns into a monster, and Geralt has to kill him, after which the hero begins to teach Ciri how to fight. The hero also finds a connection between the indestructible obelisk sticking out everywhere in the world and the monsters that, for whatever reason, prey on Ciri. The girl tells Geralt that she has the ability to see the future, and that when she was kidnapped from Cintra she screamed and destroyed one of the obelisks. Meanwhile, Yennefer awakens in the captivity of a tattered squad of the Nilfgaard army led by the court sorceress Fringilla. Yennefer discovers that she cannot cast a spell, apparently because she used too strong spell at the end of last season. Soon they are attacked by elves, killing all the soldiers and taking the wizards prisoner. The elves are led by Philip Ander and the sorceress Francesca. At night, Yennefer, Fringilla, and Francesca have a dream in which they observe a cloaked figure, each believing it to be someone specific. Eventually, they find ancient ruins and a hut on chicken legs, where they meet the Eternal Mother. She promises each girl a gift if they fulfill certain conditions. Fringilla promises power and the respect of the Nilfgaard Emperor if she makes an alliance with the elves and takes them with her to Cintra, which the Nilfgaards have already captured. Francesca becomes pregnant, as she has long dreamed, but must also go with the elves to Cintra. And Yennefer, the Eternal Mother, promises to restore her magical powers if she kidnaps Ciri for her. Yennefer doesn't know that Ciri is the same girl that Geralt was looking for. Meanwhile, in Arethusa, headquarters of the wizards, the council decides what to do with the Nilfgaard warlord Kaer, who has been taken prisoner. Tissaya uses forbidden magic on him and penetrates his memory. She informs the council that she has been unable to learn anything, but apparently does learn that the Nilfgaard attacked Cintra in the first place to get Princess Cirilla. I would also like to point out that Tissaya and Vilgefortz throughout the season want to seize power in the Wizarding Council and overthrow Stregobor and Artorius from their position. Later, in the dungeon of Arethusa, a certain sorceress Lydia, serving an unknown lord, offers the fire wizard Rience, in exchange for her freedom, to bring her a girl named Ciri, last seen with the Witcher. Yennefer escapes from the elves and reaches Arethusa, but the council suspects her of conspiring with Nilfgaard and decides that she must prove her loyalty by executing Kaer with her own hands. The heroine does not want to become an assassin. She frees Kaer and escapes with him to the nearest town. There they learn that in all the northern kingdoms the persecution of the elves has begun, as they have allied themselves with the invading Nilfgaardians. It turns out that someone is secretly helping the elves escape from the city, and Yennefer discovers it's Jaskier. He delivers the woman and Kaer to a ship that sails for Cintra, but Jaskier is caught and Yennefer gets off the ship to rescue him. Kaer, meanwhile, goes to Cintra. It turns out that Rience has tracked down Jaskier because he knew the Witcher and with his help wants to find out where Ciri is. Yennefer saves Jaskier from Rience, but they are arrested by the local guards. Nevertheless, the Eternal Mother reminds the girl again that she must find Ciri and teleports her out of the prison. While Ciri trains on a special simulator for the Witcher, the sorceress Triss arrives in Caer Morhen. Harold tries to learn more information about the obelisks from her, and she teleports him to Istred, who is obsessed with history. Together they go to the very obelisk that Ciri destroyed. and the hero learns from Istred that Yennefer is alive. They also witness how a monster forms from the wreckage of the obelisk. Hero realizes that the obelisks are roughly portals between worlds, and Ciri is able to activate them with her scream. Perhaps now it is worth explaining about the worlds and the conjunction of the spheres, which is constantly talked about in the series. Roughly speaking, before, all creatures lived in their own worlds. Humans separately, elves separate, monsters separate, etc. But there was some kind of cataclysm, and these worlds began to connect for a certain time, creating a kind of huge portals. In general, this is how all the creatures appeared in this world, and monsters can't multiply here because they are from another world, and this is not their habitat. That's why the Witchers were created, to hunt these monsters. Istred guesses that Geralt has withheld some information from him about the obelisks and begins his investigation. He discovers in the books a discrepancy in the genealogical tree of the rulers of Cintra, and, turning to the mysterious couple, learns that Ciri is a descendant of Larador and the Elfess with the gift of the Elder Blood. It's a complicated subject. Roughly speaking, it is the blood of the most powerful elves who had incredible abilities. Once upon a time, an elf and a human had a child who inherited this blood, and in fact Ciri is a descendant of these elves. Meanwhile, Vesemir discovers that flowers are sprouting wherever Ciri's blood fell during her training. This only happens wherever the Elder Blood was spilled. It turns out that from the girl's blood Vesemir and Triss can create an elixir capable of creating new Witchers, as I recall that Witchers are artificially created mutants. Ciri agrees to give some of her blood, and this blood is used to make such an elixir. The girl demands to be made a Witcher, but then Geralt appears and stops the heroine. Triss also uses magic on Ciri, and they enter the memories of the Elder Blood together, where they apparently see the very first elf who had a human child. Triss also tells Ciri about a prophecy that says a child of the Elder Blood will destroy the world. In Cintra, pregnant Francesca is carrying her child while Fringilli tries to convince the generals of Nilfgaard that the elves will help them conquer the northern kingdoms. Kaer arrives in Cintra, and we learn that a Nilfgaard emperor named Emger will also arrive here shortly. Fringilli feels she is losing power, and the Eternal Mother whispers to the girl what to do. She kills all the generals and leaves only Kaer alive so that together they can convince the emperor of their usefulness. At this point, Francesca's baby is born, but he is found dead in a cradle sometime later. I also want to make it clear that the elves haven't had children in a long time, and it's quite an event for them. They don't tell us why, so we have to guess. We are also told a parallel story of the Kingdom of Redania. The head of intelligence named Dijkstra together with the sorceress Philippa, who can turn into an owl, persuade King Vesemir to attack Cintra, but first they send a scout there. That scout turns out to be an elf named Dara, who helped Ciri escape from pursuit in Season 1. Dara learns that the Nilfgaard's main goal was not to take the city, but to find Ciri, and he passes this information on to Dijkstra. However, after Francesca gives birth to a child, Dara stops working for Redania and confesses to spying on the elves. Dijkstra ignores this and orders the sorceress Philippa to bring the bard to him, most likely referring to Jaskier. Triss returns to Arethusa and tells Tissaya that the Ciri possess the gift of the Elder Blood. And Tissaya tells Vilgefortz about it. Toward the end of the season, Tissaya also meets with the monarchs of the northern kingdoms and also tells them about Cyril and the prophecy. The elves, meanwhile, led by Francesca, leave Cintra, and she begins to avenge the humans for the death of her child by killing their newborn children. Francesca also learns from Istred, who was taken prisoner, that Ciri has the gift of the Elder Blood, and that she is a hope for the future of the elves, as there is a certain prophecy. Rience arrives in Caer Morhen in search of Ciri and attacks Vesemir. He fails to find the girl and takes the very elixir from her blood. Meanwhile, Geralt and Ciri go to the Temple of Melithiel, but on the way they are attacked by the monster from the obelisk and kill Plotva. Upon reaching the temple, he asks Abbess Nennika to teach the girl magic, as she is still not in control of her powers. Suddenly Yennefer shows up at the temple, and she discovers that Ciri is the same girl that Geralt spoke of. She also tells the hero about Jaskier, who has been imprisoned. At this point the temple is attacked by Reins, and in the turmoil of the battle, Yennefer encourages Ciri to escape. She trains the girl to use magic, and they teleport out of the temple. Geralt defeats the villains, but Rience manages to escape and goes to Lydia. She uses the same elixir of Ciri's blood to determine if the girl actually possesses the Elder Blood, and burns her face because of it. Upon ascertaining that Ciri does indeed possess this gift, they summon their master, whose face we never see. Geralt frees Jaskier from his imprisonment, and, together with his old dwarf acquaintances, sets out in search of Ciri. The hero also realizes that Yennefer has been brainwashed by the Eternal Mother, and we learn that this ancient sorceress named Vesemir was sealed in the past by the Witchers in that very hut. Meanwhile, Yennefer, still dreaming of regaining her magical powers, leads the girl into the clutches of the Eternal Mother. Upon reaching Cintra, Yennefer still decides not to give up the child, but then Geralt appears and sends Ciri and Jaskier to Caer Morhen, the Witcher himself. Meanwhile, and Yennefer are transported to the hut and discover that Vesemir has escaped her imprisonment. She did this apparently fueled by the suffering of Francesca, whose child died. Once out of the hut, Vesemir takes possession of Ciri. In Caer Morhen, the possessed Ciri kills several Witchers, while Geralt and Yennefer, who have arrived, try to stop her. It turns out that there is an obelisk inside the tree in the middle of the main hall, and Vesemir uses it to open a portal to another world. Yennefer absorbs the witch's soul into her body and wants to sacrifice herself by locking the villainess in that world. Nevertheless, she accidentally draws Ciri and Geralt with her. In that world, Vesemir separates from Yennefer and joins the Horsemen, who are called the Wild Hunt by legend. I will not go into detail about what the Wild Hunt is. I will say that they are the harbingers of the end of the world, but in fact it is more complicated than that. They want to kidnap Ciri, but the girl uses her abilities to teleport back with the heroes at the last moment. Upon arrival, Yennefer discovers that she is once again capable of witchcraft. Emperor Emger of Nilfgaard arrives in Cintra, who turns out to be Ciri's father, named Danny. Caer and Fringilla try to deceive him by making it look like they killed the child Francesca and thus pitted the elves against the northern kingdoms. Emger informs them that in fact it was he who planned to kill the child, after which he orders the guards to arrest the deceivers. End of Season 2. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.